Hello, and welcome to using Band in a Box in the Vocal Jazz Rehearsal. My name is Gerhard Guter, and today we're going to take a look at this great auto accompaniment and soloist generation program, with a keen eye on how you can use it to enhance your vocal jazz rehearsals. You'll see that you can change the key of an entire accompaniment at the push of a button. We'll be taking a look at the mixing board and Native Instruments contact player. We'll also talk a little bit about RealTracks, one of the great new features in Band in a Box that really livens up the sound of any accompaniment. We'll be talking about Native Instruments contact player and assigning instruments to individual channels, and we'll look at some convenient ways to keep your virtual instruments organized. We'll be talking about the ways in which you can change the tempo for your accompaniment, including typing and tapping. Directors wishing to open up choruses of improvising will find the repeat feature particularly useful. We'll talk about ways to create virtual solos from within the Soloist Maker. We'll talk about how to adapt your chord structure for any musical style, whether it be shuffle, swing, or ballad. We'll take a look at the intro generation feature, which can be a very useful way of setting up your accompaniment. And we'll talk about converting your accompaniment from Band in a Box to audio file. Welcome to rehearsal with Fullerton College Vocal Jazz 2. In this example, I'm the sole source of accompaniment for my students. One of my primary duties as accompanist is to provide my students with the sense of groove or style for the piece so that they can provide the proper inflection for the overall mood. I need to make sure that no matter what else happens, I continue to provide a steady tempo as we're simulating a performance, or at least a segment of a performance. Our idiom of music contains some very interesting harmony. I need to make sure that none of what I'm playing is interfering with the voicings indicated for the singers. To the best of my ability, while playing piano, I also need to provide cues for entrances. And there are instances in which I'll still be playing parts, at which point my role as accompanist might take the back seat. In turning pages, I need to make certain that none of my other accompanist duties are overlooked. As accompanist, it's difficult to provide all the conducting gestures I'd be providing while not playing the piano. When harmony becomes stationary but time continues, I may have to provide some sort of fill. Accompanying while directing presents its unique set of challenges. Fortunately, there's a tool that can take care of the accompaniment for me, inspiring my students and allowing me to concentrate on my duties as director. Band in a Box is a program created by PG Music. It's available for both the Windows and Mac platforms. At first glance, the program looks a lot like a spreadsheet. Chords are entered into individually numbered cells, and accompaniment is provided by virtual instruments and audio loops. Here you can see DirectX instruments being loaded into our project. The ability to use these DirectX instruments within Band in a Box greatly enhances the sound quality of the accompaniment. Using Band in a Box with my vocal jazz ensemble allows me freedom with my conducting and more involvement with the students. It's easier for me to conduct entrances and releases. And if need be, I can pick up a microphone myself to model for students. Band in a Box performs all accompaniments with a rock-solid tempo, which can be altered at the will of the director.
I'm thinking about how you might perform this. You know, how you might...
No longer bound in the role of accompanist, I can now perform individual singers' parts.
How many times in a day do I think of you?
One of the great features in Band in a Box is the ability to instantly transpose any of your accompaniments. This is done without changing the tempo of your project. I merely select the new key, press play, and the project is generated in the new key. working with student improvisers, I found it useful to create full and solo versions of each of my files. In this example, you can see on my desktop that I have a simplified or solo version of the file for the tune in question. The soloist receives a greater level of energy than I alone as accompanist could provide, and she's also getting a much more realistic picture sonically of what will take place behind her in performance. We'll be taking a detailed look at how easy it is to adjust individual instruments behind soloists. To gain full advantage of some of the better instrument samples in Bandit-Box, we need to click on the DirectX Instrument tab. This will bring up a DirectX Plugins dialog. We have the synth track selected, and we use the pull-down menu now. We're going to select the Native Instruments Contact Player. This is the sampler in which we can load some very realistic sounding instrument samples. Here we have the Gary Gerhard Jazz and Big Band library selected, as you can see on the left side. Be aware that the player is collapsible, and you may need to push the keyboard tab in order to expand the player. We'll be spending some time talking about loading this interface with instruments and also using the master fader. In this example, our DirectX instrument has already been instantiated, and we've already loaded our instruments necessary for the accompaniment. Having gone to the Outputs tab, I now have access to the master fader. It's here that I can change the overall volume of my accompaniment. Again, you'll need to make sure that you visit the Outputs tab to get to the screen. Collapsing the Outputs window gives me access to the individual instrument volume sliders. I can now assign individual volume settings for instruments. Once again, these instruments are all part of the Gerhard Jazz and Big Band collection. Notice here that I can move pan sliders individually as well. This can be useful if you're making accompaniments for rhythm section players.